COVID-19 pandemic has taught us a lot about our health, not just our physical health, but our mental health too. With the loss of lives and everyday freedoms that we had taken for granted, COVID 19 also saw a rise in symptoms of anxiety and depression amongst the Indian population as well. As a result, mental health became a less stigmatized topic to talk about. Now, workplaces and educational institutions are also looking to address mental health issues amongst their populations, which means we're seeing a shift in the discourse away from something that is stigmatized to a community centric healing and diagnostic approach. This shift begs the question: how has our perception of mental health and mental health legislation changed over the years of our independence?
If you look at the history of mental health legislation in India, it essentially begins with the laws that the British brought in during the British rule. The basic sort of aim of these legislations was to regulate mental health care and treatment, segregate people with mental illnesses and sort of keep them away from mainstream society. Right. So those four legislations were then sort of replaced by the Indian Lunacy Act in 1912.
Under the Indian Lunacy Act of 1912, those deemed as lunatics or criminal lunatics were housed away in institutions that we now know as asylums, because they were seen as threats to law and order in British India, not as human beings with certain mental health conditions.
In 1950, our constitution came into force, and then, of course, there was a recognition of fundamental rights. And at that time, the Indian Psychiatric Society decided to introduce this new bill, which was to replace the Indian Lunacy Act. And the whole idea was to use a more sort of rights-based approach, to also look at mental illness as a curable phenomenon, which it wasn't before that.
Although it was initially introduced in 1950, it lay in cold storage for almost 3 decades before it was finally passed in 1987 as the Mental Health Care Act.
The 1987 Act was definitely a progress. It was an advancement from the 1912 legislation. The focus was slightly more person-centric than it was in the previous mental health legislation. But overall, this legislation failed over a period of time for several reasons. Essentially, one was that it gave a lot of powers to the judiciary to authorize admissions in mental health establishments. Judicial officers aren't trained to be assessing who is fit for admission and treatment and who's not. And it also gave people with mental illness a criminal color, like it was basically criminalizing them and treating them as if they were under trials. The second was there was a lot of focus on administrative procedures and a lot of complex procedures. And so the layperson, family members, people with mental illness found it very difficult to navigate the whole system.
The Act also failed to safeguard the informed consent and autonomy of persons with mental illness. This was especially the case with their human rights, which were frequently violated in the institutions that they were admitted into. This could be through the case of solitary confinement, electroconvulsive therapy administered without anesthesia, or even chaining patients to bedposts or walls. Around the same time as the introduction of the Mental Health Care Act, 2 other key programs were being set up as well. In 1982, the National Mental Health Program was launched, and in 1996, the District Mental Health Program was launched. The programs were set up to ensure wider access to formal mental health care, be it in the primary health centre in the village or in the large city hospital. They also aim to spread awareness on mental health care and encourage community participation in treatment. There was a paradigm shift in 2007 with India's ratification of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, also known as the CRPD.
So before the CRPD came into place, the dominant model which was enforced when it came to persons with disabilities, including people with mental illness or mental disability, was the medical model of disability, which basically looked at disability as something which was a problem, an impairment which was in the person, and hence the entire focus was on the individual to cure them, to treat them, and if they were incurable, couldn't be treated, then they were assumed to not have the same kind of rights that people without disabilities. It would, of course, put the entire burden on the individual. It took away the focus from the environment, from the state, from other duty bearers, and actually became a form of rationalization for ensuring that people with disabilities don't access and enjoy the same rights or don't hold the same rights as people without disabilities. So the CRPD brought in and replaced this medical model with what is known as a social model of disability. What the social model does is that it says that disability doesn't arise from the impairment in the individual. The disability arises from the fact that when my impairment interacts with barriers in my environment or in society, which then prevents me from participating on an equal basis with others, that's when the disability arises. So what this did was it removed the focus from the individual, put the focus on the environment, on environmental barriers.
So in order to comply with the CRPD, India had to amend its legislation. This meant amendments to the Mental Health Care Act of 1987 and the Persons with Disabilities Act of 1995. What eventually happened was the tabling of a new bill in 2017, the 2017 Mental Health Care Act. In parallel, the National Mental Health Policy of 2014 was also being drafted to outline the major goals and priorities of mental health legislation in the country. Its vision, and I quote, is to promote mental health, prevent mental illness, enable recovery from mental illness, promote destigmatization and desegregation, and ensure socioeconomic inclusion of persons affected by mental illness. The Mental Health Care Act of 2017 brought in a wide range of positive changes. One of the most important was that it explicitly stated that a person has a right to access mental health care. This had not been explicitly articulated as a constitutional right in previous iterations of mental health law. Along with this, persons with mental health illnesses also have access to free care under the public healthcare system, access to essential medicines as well, and there are also provisions for ambulance services in the cases of psychiatric emergencies. Two novel features of the Act are that of advance directives and nominated representatives. A person with a mental health illness may foresee a time in the future where they may not be actually able to make decisions freely. In such a case, they can actually write down a declaration called an advance directive, where they explicitly state how they would like to be treated should that situation ever occur. This system upholds the autonomy and consent of the individual. It means that nobody, not even family or law officials, can treat, institutionalize, or give medication to the person that goes against what they've laid out in that testament. Persons with mental illnesses can also nominate a nominated representative who would be their primary caregiver in the event that they're not able to make decisions freely anymore. This person doesn't just have to be a member of the family, which is quite revolutionary in the Indian context. They just have to be above the age of 18, somebody who's competent, and somebody who the person trusts. The Mental Health Care Act also ensures that insurance companies cannot discriminate against persons with mental health illnesses, and that they must treat mental illness in the same way that they treat physical illness. Unfortunately, there remain many roadblocks to ensuring universal access to quality mental health care in India. These range from a lack of data to a lack of funding to a lack of professionals to the continued stigma that still exists around mental health care in Indian society. The COVID-19 pandemic has not made things easier for anyone. But with the slow shift towards a community model of mental health care, along with the fact that schools, workplaces, and families are starting to finally notice it, there is reason to believe that we are on the cusp of a better future for mental well-being. There is hope that the future holds more respect, better treatment, and less stigma for those living with mental illnesses in India.